what is a currency pair? A currency pair, in simple terms, is basically putting two currencies together to make a pair. As you already know, the English word pair means two things to become one. Now, in the currency pair, we would have the base currency and then the quote currency. Now, the base currency is basically the first currency listed, right, that is listed in the pair, and then we have the quote currency, which is basically the second currency listed in that pair. So if we have USD NGN, then it will mean that the base currency is USD and then the quote currency is NGN because it is the second currency in that pair. Now, each currency is basically identified by its own ISO currency code. Now, ISO stands for International Organization for Standardization. Now, this code is a three-letter alphabetic code that is used to identify every currency around the world. For example, the Nigerian naira is identified as NGN, the United States dollar is identified as USD, the British pound is identified as GBP, the Australian dollar is identified as AUD, the Canadian dollar is identified as CAD, and so on and so forth, right? So that is what the ISO means. Now, in a currency pair, we have the major currencies, we have the minor currencies, and then we have the exotic pairs. Now, the major currencies are basically the currencies with the most liquidity, right? The ones which are more traded the most, and they basically carry more weight than the others, right? So we have the United States dollar, we have the euro, we have the Japanese yen, we have the British pound, we have the Australian dollar, we have the Canadian dollar, and we have the Swiss franc. Now, every other currency is basically quoted against these pairs, right? And then the ones which are not quoted against this pair are referred to as the exotic pairs, and we'll get there in a moment. Now, let's talk about what major currency pairs are. There are basically 5 major currency pairs: the British pound versus the US dollar, the GBP USD, which is also known as the cable. We have the USD card, which is USD versus CAD, which is also known as Lune. Among traders, traders can be pretty, trickier sometimes when they're trying to catch your attention or try to sound fancy. They use words like this to, confuse other people who don't know what they are talking about. It's pretty amazing to be able to talk fancy about what you do. So this is pretty much why people refer to these assets this way. As I was saying, we have the AUD USD, which is the Australian dollar versus the United States dollar, which is also known as Aussie, right? And then we have the USD versus the Swiss franc, which is known as Swissy. And then we have USD JPY, which at this time I do not know what it is referred to as, and I doubt if it has one. And then we have the Euro USD, and then we have the NZD USD. Now, these are the 7 major currency pairs that are being traded on the foreign exchange market, right? I'll come again with them. We have the GBP USD, we have USD CAD, we have AUD USD, we have USD franc, we have USD JPY, we have Euro USD, and we have NZD USD. Now, as I mentioned earlier on, there are 3 basic currency pairs. We have the major currency pairs, we have minor currency pairs, and then we have the exotic or the cross pairs, right? The minor currency pairs would basically be every other asset that is paired with the major currencies. For example, we have GBP JPY, we have GBP JPY, we have Euro JPY, we have NZD JPY, we have them, so on and so forth, right? It's absolutely important that you take note of these things, such that as you progress further, you will be able to keep track of where you are at and what you know, what you don't know, and also you can jot down your questions so that you can ask me questions when it is time to ask me questions. And I will also need you to put the work in, practice as often as you can, put the work in basically. And I promise you, at the end of the day, you'll be so proud of yourself and the things that you'll be able to do in the foreign exchange market. Now, that being said, let's go back to what we were talking about. Now, we have the exotic pairs. Now, the exotic pairs would also be on your screen in a moment. Now, those are the exotic pairs as you can see them on your screen, right? Now, that is all about currency pairs. Without further ado, I'll see you in the next video where we're going to be talking about something else entirely.